Hello, Pastor R.
Hey there, Dr. Amir.
This is Pastor R. Dallas Green. I'm Dr. Amir Rashidi, and we are doing another episode of Let's Settle the Issue. So the question to ask is, what's the issue?
Well, the issue today, Dr. Amir, is whether genetics determine whether we get cancer or not. How do we get cancer? You know, I wore my jeans today. Yes. I chose to wear my jeans.
Perfect.
And there's more to life than genes. There's the genes that are inside our bodies and our DNA
yes.
that seem to control whether or not we get cancer.
Okay.
According to the National Cancer Institute, pretty much all cancer comes from genetic mutation. Some of which comes from inherited genes, like we get passed on to us genes from our parents. There's recessive dominant genes. There's genes that determine our sex. There's genes that determine our physical characteristics. There's actually these genetically mutated genes like the BRCA1 and 2 gene, which has something to do with breast cancer, which takes me to something I want to talk about, which is the famous actress Angelina Jolie.
That's right.
She, 5 years ago, decided to have a double mastectomy because in talking with her physician, it was determined that she had an 87% chance of getting breast cancer.
Wow.
Her mother had cancer, breast cancer, and survived it, overcame it, and then died of ovarian cancer. Her aunt also had breast cancer. Her sister had breast cancer, and she had the BRCA1 gene. And in consultation with her doctors, she determined that she had an 87% chance of getting the disease. And she chose an elective procedure, a double mastectomy, at 37 years of age. Now, knowing she has 6 children and worldwide humanitarian interests and a promising actress career, she chose to be proactive.
Yes.
She said she didn't feel less of a woman or less feminine,
right?
But she had sort of solved the problem. Do you think that if we basically take it into our own hands and have the genetic testing and find out that we have a genetic predisposition, that we should indeed have the surgery or whatever procedure is necessary so as to forestall the chance of getting the disease?
Wow. It's a good issue. Well, there are so many things that I have a problem with regards to that. Let's talk about genes for a minute. You said our genes determine our sex. Is our sex determined when we're born? Or even before?
Conception.
100%, right. And the same with our color of our skin and other characteristics, right? But are we born with cancer?
No.
And if it's truly genetic, 100% genetic, purely genetic, why aren't we born with it? Those genes are there from the day we're born. That's why the DNA can be used to identify us.
So we would say a predisposition to cancer, perhaps because of an inherited gene.
So what makes it turn on? What turns that gene on to turn it into cancer? Why does it happen at age 35 in some people and not till the age of 60 in others?
Well, some would argue there's an accumulation of mutation in the genes that sort of results in cancer. The cells go out of control.
I do agree with you there, and those mutations are caused by something. Typically, it's things like radiation and toxins and environmental factors other than those, right? So what if we live a clean life? Do those genes still turn on? Are we destined to get cancer just because we have the gene? Because here's a question for you. You and I probably both have the gene for a hangover. There's a program inside of us, but neither of us are. You're not hungover, right?
I'm not.
Neither of us are hungover. Why aren't we hungover?
We didn't drink last night.
We didn't drink last night, but we have the gene. In fact, this was on Huffington Post News that said the gene for the hangover has been discovered, and it was this funny thing. It had a dog with an ice pack on his head, laying there, and so you might know, our audience, you might know what a hangover feels like, but if you haven't been excessively drinking, I'm not talking about a glass of wine, but if you haven't been excessively drinking to the point where you almost you induce poisoning, you're not going to get that hangover, even though you have the gene. What if cancer is the same? Every one of us is susceptible to cancer. I believe And in fact, research has proved that 5 to 10% of every human body is cancerous. We have cells in our body that are cancerous. We have cells that have mutated, that have been damaged through radiation or UV rays or things we have eaten. They're damaged and they're cancerous. But what happens is we know that the immune system, your body's immune system, seeks and destroys those cancer cells.
Yes.
So what if instead of a double mastectomy, we make sure we have a very strong immune system, because the cancer that starts in the breast takes over the whole breast, gets into the lymph nodes, metastasizes to the spine and the lungs and the rest of the body. Yeah. Started with one cell. That cell should have been found by your immune system and destroyed at that point.
So I guess the question is, how do we kick that immune system into gear?
Yes.
So that it becomes sort of this cancer-seeking, destroying agent.
Absolutely. I'll tell you, you need to sleep enough. Do you know the American Cancer, I think it's the American Cancer Association, recently reclassified shift work as a carcinogen, equivalent to smoking. Now, does everyone who smokes get cancer?
No. In fact, some people smoke several packs a day and don't get cancer.
Right. So the thing is that 50% is the number. 50% of people who smoke over a pack a day for over 10 years never get cancer. And yes, it could be their genes, right? But it could also be that other aspects of their life as well. And so maybe that person's sleeping enough, right? That person doesn't have the stress of a bad relationship. Maybe they don't have an abusive spouse or an abusive parent, or they themselves don't have abusive personalities and they don't argue about things, and maybe they're not financial stress. There's other, maybe they don't eat inflammatory foods, because the second thing that causes cancer is inflammation. So immune system, right? Inflammation. And the third thing, and some people say this is number one, is toxicity and deficiency, which is environmental factors. Now, back in the 70s, the Great Lakes, all the fish were washing up shore dead with tumors. They had cancer. Nobody, and this has happened throughout history in ecological systems, whether it's fish or mammals or whatever else it might be, birds. So the birds actually were eating these fish, and they were getting cancer too. By eating fish that had cancer, they were getting cancer. Doesn't mean they had bad genes, right? But nobody pulled those fish out of the water and gave them some chemotherapy and stapled a little pink ribbon to their tail and put them back in the water.
Yeah.
What they did was they said, let's clean the water because it's too toxic. And then the next generation of fish were healthy.
So Dr. Amir, I had cancer about 3 years ago. I had a solitary fibrous tumor in my side. Typically, it begins in your pleurisy, your lungs.
Yes.
But this began in my side.
Wow.
It was encased. But a year before that, I had a spinal fluid leak, and the inflammation was in the very same spot where the tumor happened.
Wow.
Probably causing those cells to mutate and become inflamed.
Correct.
And the body's response to that was a tumor that spun out of control.
Correct.
Had its own blood supply. So when they were treating me, they talked about radiation, but the oncologist said, we don't want to give you radiation because that causes more cancer.
Yes, exactly.
So, they removed the cancer. I've been cancer-free ever since. They check it every now and then.
Praise God.
So I don't have any cancer, but I think there was a direct mutation in my cells.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I want to give thanks to our medical system, because we've gotten really good at treating cancer. It's not the deadly thing it used to be.
Yeah.
Most people are recovering from breast cancer these days.
Yes.
There's like a 99.9% success rate with prostate cancer, colon cancer. So we're doing a good job with that, but we're not preventing it. And I believe prevention comes from avoiding deficiency, avoiding toxicity, improving the immune system, and reducing inflammation in your body.
What do you think about screening? So let's say we have, mammograms now and colonoscopies.
I am against genetic screening, 100%. I believe your genes need to be turned on by some kind of toxin for that to take place. Just like excessive drinking will cause the hangover. Other than that, all the screenings are okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Because geneticists are now claiming that there's about 50 different hereditary cancers that can be screened for.
Yes.
So once we screen for them, we can determine your predisposition.
Yes.
And your argument is, no, let's turn on the immunity.
Don't worry about your genes. Just increase your immune system, reduce inflammation, avoid toxins, and meet the deficiencies. You know what this kind of reminds me of is, this makes me think of predestination.
Yes.
Are we predestined? Some of us are predestined to go to heaven, or is it different? What do you say?
I say we have a choice. I say from God's perspective, He gives a choice as to whether we would exercise faith.
Yes.
We exercise faith, and then we find out that we've been predestined.
Yes.
So God.
And none of us are going to leave this planet alive.
No. What does it profit a man if he beats cancer but he loses his soul?
Absolutely.
So I think what I really do need is I really need to have the hope of heaven inside of me that takes me through this journey of life, and I turn on my immunity.
Now that's an issue I agree with.
And that settles the issue.
That settles the issue.